A call for chaos. The US should push for a two-state solution, not displace an entire people. The primary lessons from the Reagan air crash. The tragic mid-air collision on January 29, 2025 between the United States Army UH-60 Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter and an American airliner CRJ-700 flight while it was on the final approach path to Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, Washington DC, killed killing 67 people brings out several aspects of human factors that can result in a tragedy. In this case, the first was having politicians jump the gun by blaming others even before a formal investigation began and bodies were yet to be recovered from the watery grave of the Potomac River. US President Donald Trump was quick to blame the former President Barack Obama and Joe Biden for diluting US air safety standards, for forgetting that it was he who held the reins in the interim 4 year period. One saw the same kind of political one-upmanship just after the air accident at Mangaluru in the May 2010 when the Minister of Civil Aviation Praful Patel declared that the airport conformed to all standards of ICAO Annex 14 Volume 1. Volume 1. Dutifully, the Court of Inquiry Committee was headed by retired Air Marshal of the Indian Armed Air Force, glossed over the blatant violations of the Airports Authority of India (DGCA) and the airline, that is Air India Express, by blaming only the pilot. In all the air accident reports in India, one never gets detailed data from the digital flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. Unlike in India, where the truth is hidden and restrictions placed on all access to information on the accident, photographs, or data on the state of infrastructure, it is open to the rest of the world where one can analyze data with vital clues that are available. This is a big lesson to be learned from air accident in the US. The radar track and the air traffic control audio tracks were openly available and one could analyze and disseminate the facts instead of having doctored data and reports that have been vetted by a bureaucrat who ensures that there is nothing incriminating about against the government and its agencies is published in the final report. Let us take what has been put out by media sources in the US. What is generally known as the American Airlines flight was given a runway change by air traffic control to accommodate a departure. The change was accepted by the crew. The helicopter, Priority Air Transport PAT 25, had taken off from a base near for a proficiency training flight at night and had been informed about a passenger flight. The air traffic controller has asked the helicopter crew whether he had the passenger flight in sight. The pilot responded by saying he was visual with the plane and he was given clearance to maintain visual and pass behind the passenger flight. This is where human factor plays a big part. The flight was at night. Other than navigation lights and rotating beacon, the helicopter pilot had no other clue to make out the type of aircraft he had visual sighting with. His only information was based on the flight number. If one looks at the radar picture available to the public and information from the air traffic control recording, there was another flight which was behind the American Airlines flight but was approaching the main runway that American flight was originally approaching before the American crew accepted a sidestep to a different runway. Did the helicopter pilot wrongly identify second flight to be American flight when he reported visual to air traffic control? If one looks at the radar track of his second flight and the track being followed by the helicopter to cross behind, it is quite likely that the helicopter accepted had focus on the second flight rather than the American Airlines flight were fixated on behind the aircraft they had perhaps misidentified. As both the helicopter and American Airlines flight were below 1,000 feet above the ground level, the collision avoidance system would not have sounded as it would have been inhibited below 1,000 feet. In aviation parlance, this is what one calls pressonitis or the hurry syndrome, where once you get fixated, all other inputs cannot influence your judgment. One needs a fresh and clear mind to be able to maintain situational awareness and spatial orientation. Fatigue and stress have a major role in these situations. The initial reports indicate that there was only a single air traffic controller at the Reagan handling the flights when normally two controllers are on duty. Soon after the Reagan accident, the visual media in India went on overdrive with graphic presentations of the Charkhi Dadri mid-air collision near New Delhi on November 12, 1996. In this accident, Kazakhstan Airlines from Chimkent, Kazakhstan to Delhi collided with Saudi Arabian airliner Boeing 747 from Delhi to Tehran, killing 349 people. The pilot of the Kazakh flight was blamed for not complying with the air traffic control clearance. What people are not aware of was was a DGC official who was in charge of the investigation was removed from the investigation when he submitted his findings. It was another official who finalized the report. It is needless to say that the last 9 minutes of the digital flight data recorder of the Saudia flight was a blank. In the recent crash in South Korea in December 24, when a passenger flight landed with retracted wheels and crashed into an embankment housing an instrument landing system localizer, housing the ILS localizer antenna, the South Korea, like India, at the time of Mangaluru crash, had not complied with the ICAO NX 14 that mandated all system structures operational shall be frangible. Yet ICAO gave them a clean sheet during the audits conducted. The Korean jet's flight data recorder was blank for the last 4 minutes. Let us not forget that the case of two Indigo flights on Jan 7, 22, one bound for Kolkata, another for Bhubaneswar, that were departing from parallel runways at Bengaluru airport. The air traffic controllers had cleared planes for takeoff in the two runways at Bengaluru. One runway was to be used for takeoff, other for landing simultaneously. It was a narrow escape for both planes. One runway was to be used for takeoff and other for landing simultaneously. It was a narrow escape. Neither the airline nor the air traffic control reported the matter, but the incident came to light during safety audit. The lack of situational awareness and lack of knowledge of the pilots and the functioning of collision avoidance system were safety issues that were swept under the carpet. On October 11, 24, Air India Express flight from Tiruchirappalli to Sharjah experienced hydraulic failure in one system. It circled for close to 3 hours before landing, but political class in Tamil Nadu and media went to town, making a hero out of the captain who had exhibited very poor judgment when he could have made an overweight landing immediately. This is another example of people with no knowledge of aviation passing judgments and influencing investigation agencies. The mid-air tragedy should open the eyes of traveling public, and people know that safety is being compromised for brownie points. The saga of regulating India's thermal power emissions. On December 30, India's Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change issued a notification amending environmental protection rules by pushing back the deadline for thermal plants to comply with SO2 emission norms by 3 years without any reason being given. As it happens, the existing deadline for about 20 gigawatts of thermal power plants, all located in close proximity to densely populated areas, was December 31, 2024. Existing deadline 20 gigawatt of thermal plants. SO2 emission norms, MOEFs. This is the latest intense instance in a nearly decade-long saga that fans of Franz Kafka would find appealing. The MOFCC revised emission norms for the internal thermal plants on December 15 after public consultations, that and all thermal plants were expected to comply with them by December 17. This notification tightened the prevalent norms for particulate matter emissions and introduced norms for other emissions, including SO2, for the first time. These norms were understood to be broadly on par with existing practices in countries such as Australia, China, and the United States. Indian coal generally has lower sulfur content than other coal, which should have made it easier for Indian thermal plants to meet the SO2. But rather than focusing on best ways to meet the norms, given India's coal characteristics, the debate morphed into the challenges around implementing the flue gas desulfurization technology for desulfurization of high sulfur coal. Indian coal is generally low sulfur content than any other coal, which should have made it easier for Indian thermal plants to meet the SO2 emission norms. But rather than focusing best ways to meet the norms, given Indian coal characteristic, the debate morphed on challenges around implementing the FGD technology for desulfurization of high sulfur coal. Challenges around implementing the flue gas desulfurization technology for desulfurization of high sulfur coal. Despite the norms never mandating FGDs, the discussion became one about issues such as scheduling of FGD installations given their long gestation periods and likely cost of installing them. In parallel, a different discourse questioning the SO2 emission norm themselves also took shape, often driven by different arms of the government. The Central Electricity Authority published papers in 2020-21 questioning the need for uniform norms across the country and proposing that its countrywide implementation shall be phased out till 2035. The CEA also commissioned a study from IIT Delhi which concluded that installation of FGDs does provide air quality benefits, but argued that extending the timelines due to issues such as FGDs being expensive, their supply chain being inadequate, and their operation leading to increased coal consumption. In 24, Niti Aayog commissioned CSIR NIRI to conduct study on this. The study concluded that SO2 emissions are not important to achieve good ambient air quality in India. Instead, the focus should be on particulate emissions. This was one strand of debate about secondary aerosol formation from SO2 emissions as the reason to have norms for it, even though Indian coal is relatively low sulfur. Thus, rather than debating these issues and building a consensus before notifying the first set of norms, it continues robustly near a decade after their notification. In the midst of these debates, the MOEFCC diluted some norms and also extended multiple times the deadlines for compliance, with notification of December 24 being the fourth in the series. As a result, there are different deadlines for thermal plants in different locations and for different type of emissions, with SO2 emission deadlines being well after the deadline for other emissions. Indeed, final deadline for compliance with the other emissions, which include particulate matter emissions, which are considered important by all government agencies, was December 31, 2024, with many plants having to comply for December 31 of 2022 and 2023. But it is not clear if various pollution control boards are verifying adherence to even these norms, as there is no public source easily available that provides this information. Given the evolving timelines and various notifications by the MOEFCC, many thermal plants have already tendered contracts to install FGDs, though not at a pace required to meet their deadlines before the latest notification. This was enabled by electricity regulators introducing regulations to pass on the cost of installing FGDs and other pollution control equipment to electricity consumers, irrespective of whether emission norms are met or not. As a result, though the earliest deadline for meeting SO2 is December 27, 22 gigawatt of thermal plants have already installed FGDs. Additionally, 102 gigawatt of installed thermal capacity in advanced stages of setting up FGDs. Given the new timelines for compliance, the chances are that plants with FGDs will not run them, since this would increase the cost of generation and hence push them down the preferred list of generators. Thus, electricity consumers are likely to be paying for installed but unused equipment, even as citizens living around the thermal plants do not get access to cleaner air for at least 3 more years, if longer. Perhaps the modern variant of Birbal's khichdi will get cooked one day, but the institutional, environmental, health, and financial cost of doing so are likely to end up high, and the original fable, it is not even clear whether the right lessons would be learned from this saga. Deputation. I write this letter as a former Union Minister of Law and Justice. The heart-rending ordeal of Indian citizens deported to India on a US military aircraft is the ultimate denunciation of American pensioners' pretensions as the global defender of human rights and democracy. The reported chaining and handcuffing of helpless captives aboard the plane, completely restricting their movement and even the access to the washroom, must put to shame all those responsible to the infraction of our citizens' right to dignity, privacy, the mental and peaceful physical torture of our citizens by the American authority merits a firm and suitable response from the Indian government. I would appeal to the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to take up the matter to the highest level in the US administration, clearly protecting the dignity and basic human rights of Indian citizens is the first charge on the resources of the Indian state. It is unfortunate that the BJP government at the center has not only failed to condemn the inhuman treatment meted out to the Indians reported by the American government, but also have gone to defend the act. It was audacious that the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar stated casually in the Rajya Sabha yesterday that it is a practice of American government. The standard operating procedure provides for the use of restraint. Standard operating procedure provides for the use of restraint. One also wonders why Prime Minister has maintained pronounced silence. Does it mean that he considered his friendship with Mr. Trump to be more important than basic rights of Indians? The United States President Donald Trump is setting a dangerous precedent by proposing plan to take over Gaza as reported by the Hindu with support from the US demolishing Gaza and has rendered millions of Palestinians homeless. Now Mr. Trump is proposing to make them landless. Also, while he is after illegal immigrants in the US on grounds is he asking West countries to have Palestinians displaced by his own ally. Besides setting a dangerous precedent for international relations, Mr. Trump's proposal will upset the rules based international order. A megalomaniac cannot ride roughshod over the rules based system the civilized international community has in place. A call for chaos the US should pursue for a two-state solution should not displace an entire people. When the Israel state of Israel was created in Palestine in 1948, more than 7 lakh Palestinians, the land's original inhabitants, were displaced. Palestinians remember this forced mass expulsion as the Nakba catastrophe. More Palestinians were expelled during the Six-Day War in 1967. Some moved to Gaza, other to the West Bank, while the majority fled to other countries where they and their descendants are refugees. In successive peace talks, Israel has outrightly rejected the right to return to their homes, a fundamental right. Now, US President Donald Trump wants to forcibly transfer over the 2.3 million Palestinians out of Gaza, the Mediterranean enclave that has suffered relentless Israeli bombardment for 15 months. His plan involves relocating Palestinians to neighboring Arab countries, taking over the 360 square kilometer strip which he calls hellhole and redeveloping it into a river of Middle East. At the press conference in Washington DC with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he also stated troops to Gaza if necessary. The White House later claimed he meant a temporary relocation of Palestinians. He also clarified that he has not committed to deploying US troops, but reaffirmed that his out of the box proposal for Gaza was a serious one. However, Mr. Trump's plan for it has at least three fundamental problems. First, Palestinians are not an imperial possession that Israel and US can bomb and relocate at will. They are a people with national identity whose collective history, present, past, and future is deeply tied to the Palestinian land. Despite relentless Israeli bombardment, the Palestinians of Gaza have refused to leave. Now, Mr. Trump is advocating what is essentially a call for ethnic cleansing, another Nakba. Second, Arab countries, including many America's allies, have unequivocally rejected Mr. Trump's proposal. They understand that Palestinians who were forcefully removed under the managed to return. Even authoritarian Arab rulers, regardless of their dependence on US aid, must pay attention to the sentiments of the people. Third, Mr. Trump's vision of rebuilding Gaza aligns closely with Israelis' far right's agenda, resettling the land with Jewish settlers. This will further alienate an already desperate population and plant yet another time bomb in West Asia. Mr. Trump must abandon his calls for ethnic cleansing and instead use America's influence to ensure a successful ceasefire in Gaza. The US should work towards a lasting, just solution, one that acknowledges Palestinian rights and uphold the principles of peace and stability in the region. Crippling aid work. The fallout of US foreign assistance freeze will be far reaching. Insularity often stems from contempt, and this the kind now being exhibited by US President Donald Trump and his administration is no exception. Withdrawing from international commitments has becoming a defining feature of Mr. Trump's foreign policy, and the last decision to freeze foreign assistance adds to the list of drastic moves following the withdrawal from WHO and Paris Accord. This decision will disrupt the established global aid structures and have dire consequences for millions who rely on US assistance for survival. While the full impact is yet to unfold, it is clear in those who in the development sector that a cascade of negative repercussions is imminent. On the first day in office, Mr. Trump imposed a 90-day freeze on foreign assistance, citing inefficiencies and ideological opposition to US aid. His administration argued that USAID misallocates funds and operates at odds with his policies. Elon Musk, head of Department of Government Efficiency, went so far as to label USAID a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America. The official USAID website has been stripped of its content but announced that all personnel would be placed on administrative leave, with only a few exceptions for a mission critical staff. Administration also ordered the rapid repatriation of overseas USAID personnel within 30 days. USAID, established in 1961 as an independent agency under the Foreign Assistance Act, designed to provide global humanitarian and developmental development aid. According to US government official spending tracker, USAID was allocated 44 billion in 24 budget, while this amounts to just 0.4% of total US federal budget. Media reports indicate that it accounted for nearly 42% of all humanitarian aid tracked by the UN in 24. USAID funds a range of programs which include healthcare, food aid, policy advocacy. The agency has maintained a strong presence in India since the 1960s, supporting initiatives in education, immunization, HIV, TB prevention, polio eradication, and child health. Though direct financial aid to India has declined in the recent years, USAID contributions still amounted to over 150 million for the latest fiscal year. However, in many conflict-ridden regions, USAID remains a lifeline. Withdrawing from international aid efforts is more than a bureaucratic shift. It risks leaving millions without food, medical assistance, and critical resources. Decision reflects an inward-looking approach that dismisses the interconnectedness of global affairs. As US retreats from the historic leadership in international development, the world will be left grappling with consequences of this reckless policy shift. Should India build a sovereign foundational AI model? Pranesh Prakash is a co-founder for the Center of Internet and Society and is currently associate fellow at Yale. Tanuj Bhojwani was until recently head of People plus AI and had worked extensively on India Stack projects like UPI Aadhaar and as a part of iSpirit. In 23, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman's remark in India on the cost of training foundational models like the one that power the ChatGPT sparked a debate on whether Indian firms should spend millions of dollars with the aim of that technology. The issue pits sovereignty and national pride against financial constraint. Is it necessary for sovereignty and business reasons for India to work towards a foundational model? As the IT Ministry's India AI mission has announced it will. Is it necessary for sovereignty and business reasons for India to work towards a foundational model as IT Ministry IT Ministry's India AI mission has announced it will? Tanuj Pranesh Prakash and Tanuj Bhojwani had discussed the question in the discussion moderated by Arundeep. Does India need to build a sovereign foundational AI model for its local needs? I believe that India should be working on foundational model, but not for the purpose of sovereignty. It is important to have people who are able to build foundational models and also to have people who can build on top of foundational models to deploy and build applications. We need to have people in India who are ready to able to apply themselves on every part of building AI. Sovereignty is something that we should be concerned about from the perspective of things such as sanctions, which we have seen the US apply over specific kind of chips, especially those that are used for training AI models. Those may be AI models and export controls over things like software or models, those may be coming down the road. But I do not think you need to be worried about that as things stand. What we have are not just proprietary models which are closed under license and cannot legally be used without permission of a person who created that model. We also have a lot of open weights model and few open source models such as DeepSeek R1, and because we have these for which you do not need permission and can deploy locally, we do not need to approach these from the perspective of national security and sovereignty and concerned about sanctions and so on. If there are sanctions tomorrow which are applied to the usage of these models produced in the US, Indians can just fork the code of the many existing open source models, refashion those and build on top of them. As long as these models exist, are state of the art and are competing well against proprietary models. I believe we will soon come to a point where they will compete proprietary models. We do not need to be concerned about this from the perspective of sovereignty. I would say for sovereignty we should do this, but if they really wanted to block you, they would start with chips. As Mr. Pranesh pointed out, even if you had your own model, you need GPUs to run it. DeepSeek uses Huawei 910C chips. India cannot even put that up. We have no contract with manufacturers such as TSMC to produce chips of even previous generation. More than sovereignty, there is an element of pride here. We are ambitious people and want our own model. We have done this in other areas as we reach beyond in GDP per capita terms. What our Agadh station would be. Infosys founder Nandan Nilekani point and my point is this: do this if you see returns, if do this if anybody sees the returns on it. Whether the pride is the reasons for the investment, make sure the investment is proportionate to that end. Does the emergence of DeepSeek at low cost make this more attainable? Is it worth the expense? Even with DeepSeek, this remains a game of a few hundred of millions of dollars. DeepSeek's V3 training run cost at $5.6 million, but in cutting edge research there are a lot of failed attempts at that goal, so we are still talking of hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. Even if you produce a foundational model in India, that there is still a lot to do, paying salaries and so on, before you can make money back on that investment. That market is still majorly the market is still majorly US dominated. About 60% of the market cap of the entire globe is in the US. Even today, business to business software as a service founders in India are largely selling to the US. If you believe we will make an Indian model with local language content, you're capping yourself on the knee because the overall Indian enterprise market that will purchase AI is much smaller. Spending $200 a month to replace a human worker may be possible in the US, but India, that is what the human worker is being paid for in the first place. To succeed here anyway, the government needs to create an institute that has the autonomy and spending power. 90% of the spending will go to failed experiments. Our public procurement system is not geared for that kind of error tolerance. There is a lot we can do in terms of software in which India has seen a success. We need more focus on what is built on top of models, how we commercialize AI models that are already in use. The enthusiasm among young developers is very much there, even if they are not always well versed. Students nowadays in their first year are learning how to use six different development tools right from the very beginning. We should now also promote innovation based on constraints as Alibaba and DeepSeek have shown. I think the real question to ask is not whether we should undertake the Herculean task of building the one foundational model, but to ask whether what are the investment we should be making such that research environment, the innovation, the private market investors all come together and orchestrate in a way to produce somewhere out of a lab or out of private player a foundational large language model. The real question we are not paying attention to are why does it not happen? What is wrong with our research? Why is what is wrong with our R&D investment, the spending both by the private market and the government? India AI mission under the IT Ministry has announced that it has GPU clusters available to startups and academia at subsidized rates. What is your take on the announcement and the government AI policy in general as an impetus to investment? The capital expenditure is a good sign. I think the capital should look at other ways of promoting the responsible use of these technologies, including amongst them are doing careful studies of what kinds of regulations ought to put and very importantly what kinds of regulation ought not to be put. This does bring down the cost of renting a GPU significantly downwards, but even then somewhere in this are margins that we are paying to data or center operators, providers, etc. to do these things. It is my understanding that both DeepSeek and of course the large labs definitely have dedicated contracts wherein they are buying, installing the GPUs and using them completely by themselves for training runs. Even with low training run bills, DeepSeek has critical threshold of captive GPUs. They are known to have at least a cluster of NVIDIA H100s and calculation doing the rounds put their investment at $1.3 billion. The big tech firms are investing 80 billion a year on infrastructure. We have a resource constraint here. The budget for this is less than the cost of training Meta Llama's 4 model, and that budget then has to be spread out equitably and fairly among the whole country. The government is not taking that concentrated bet. We are talking very sparse resources that we have, and we are furthering thinning it out. The subsidy is still a very good thing if people are using it for the right purposes. AI for Bharat is trying to train India trans to and text to speech system for Indian languages, and those are critical things we need. And you can get away with say 50, 500 or 1000 GPUs for that task, and you can get very good results compared to the state of the art. So I think that that is really the message that we should acknowledge, that we have limited resources and then we should think about what is the wisest way to spend them. Competing with ChatGPT or DeepSeek R1 may not be the best idea with the absolute quantum of resources without we are talking about. What community mental health could mean for journalists. A C-17 wide-bodied aircraft of the US Air Force carrying 100 Indian migrants deported from the US lands at the Guru Ramdas Ji International Airport in Amritsar on February 5. Amount received in India in climate finance so far, $1.16 billion. This includes 436 million from the Global Environment Facility, 800 million from Green Climate Fund, 16 million from the Adaptation Fund. Funds are got through the financial mechanism of UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Indian illegal immigrants deported from US since 2009, 15,000. A number of pending cases where the central government is a party, 7 lakh. The central government is a party in a 7 lakh cases pending across courts. The law minister said total of 406 POSCO courts are functional across 30 states. Number of public grievances redressed in 24, 28 lakh. Number of medical colleges served show cause notices 18. Under the scanner, Adani's project in Sri Lanka. Why is Adani's green power plant in northern Sri Lanka controversial? What are the environmental concerns linked to it? What did current president Anura Kumara Dissanayake why did the chairman of Ceylon Electricity Board resign? On January 24, news agency AFP reported that Sri Lanka revoked a 24 power purchasing agreement signed with Adani Green Energy Limited. A Sri Lankan official told the agency that while the project itself has not been cancelled, the government has appointed a committee to review it. The Adani Group categorically denied the cancellation of the project. The move drew attention with many in Sri Lanka flagging President Anura Kumara Dissanayike's pre-poll pledge to cancel the corrupt project that had been mired in controversy from the time it was approved. In its latest clarification, the Dissanayake government had said there is no decision to cancel the project but that it would renegotiate a lower rate of power purchase with the firm. Cabinet spokesperson Nalinda Jatsa said the government is seeking a lower tariff that is below 6 cents per kilowatt hour, 6 cents per kilowatt hour instead of formerly agreed rate of 8 cents per kilowatt hour. A minister's announcement stood out since the Dissanayake government in October 24 told the Supreme Court in an ongoing case that it would reconsider the approval granted by the previous government to the Adani Group for the wind power project. Furthermore, Mr. Dissanayake and his party have in past underscored the need for competitive bid. We welcome foreign capital, including from the private sector, but all investment should come through a fair tender process. Mr. Dissanayake told Hindu, if the government had gone for a fair tender process, we could have got it for half the price. What is the project? Adani Green Energy Limited is to build wind power plant project in Manad and Punerin towns in Sri Lanka's northern province, investing $442 million. According to Sri Lankan authorities, the project is expected to add at least 350 megawatt to the island's green national grid by 25. In October 21, Adani Group Chairman Gautam Adani's visit to Colombo and called on then President Gotabaya Rajapakse weeks after his company sealed a deal with state-owned Sri Lanka Ports Authority to develop and run strategic Colombo Port's Western Container Terminal. Weeks after his company sealed a deal with Sri Lanka Port Authority to develop and run the strategic Colombo Port's Western Container Terminal, which is currently proceedings. At that time, officials of Ceylon Electricity Board told media that GRIP also explored the possibility of investing in Sri Lanka's wind and renewable energy sector. In March 22, the CEB signed a memorandum of understanding with the Adani Green for the wind energy project, but the development was kept under wraps. It was a report in the local Sunday Times that brought the move to light. Ever since, the project has remained spotlight amid drastic developments in the island. Gotabaya Rajpaksha administration came under fierce attack from the opposition for choosing the Adani Group for the project without calling for competitive bids and bypassing due process. The group's backdoor entry into Sri Lanka's energy sector disrupted the country's competitive electricity generation. The main opposition party, Samgi Jan Bhagya, contended, accusing the government of pampering Prime Minister Narendra Modi's notorious friends. In June 22, chairman of the CFP-MMC Fernando resigned days after he told parliamentary panel that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has pressured Sri Lankan president to clear the Adani Group project. Sri Lanka experienced crushing financial meltdown owing to acute twin deficit problem. As a result, Mr. Goodbye was dramatically ousted from office by citizens uprising, following which Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe took his place in July 22. Even as the crisis endured, there was renewed thrust on building foreign investment into the country to rebuild a battered economy. In February 23, Sri Lanka's Board of Investment approved a project to set up two wind power plants in northern Sri Lanka with 442 million investment from Adani Green Energy Limited. The two wind power plants, 250 megawatt and 100 megawatt, Mannar and Punerin, were scheduled to be commissioned in 2 years, and the project would generate around 2,000 new jobs, the board has announced. Despite US short seller Hindenburg accused Adani Group of serious corruption in January that year, the foreign minister Ali Sabri told The Hindu that Colombo sees Adani projects in Sri Lanka as government to government kind of deal and was confident of their future. In May 24, President Vikram Sanghe's cabinet cleared a proposal to purchase power at 0.08 or 8 cents per kilowatt hour from Adani Green Energy. Residents of Manar have been raising concerns over the project's likely impact on the crucial bird corridor in the region and livelihoods of local fisher folk. Environmentalists too are opposing the planned Central Asian Flyway, an important migration route for many vertebrate species, runs through Manar. Last year, multiple petitioners challenged the Adani wind power project. In March 22, the CEB signed a memorandum of understanding with Adani Green Energy for the wind energy project, but the development was kept under wraps. It was reported in local Sunday that brought the move to light. Ever since, the project has remained in the spotlight. In February 23, Sri Lanka's Board of Investment approved a project to set up two wind power plants in northern Sri Lanka with 440 million investment from Adani Green Energy Limited. The two wind power plants, 250 megawatt capacity in Mannar and 100 megawatt in Punerin, were scheduled to be commissioned in 2 years. Central Asian Flyway, an important migration route for many waterbird species, runs through Mannar. On the appointment of ad hoc judges to high courts, what did the Supreme Court order? Have such appointments made previously? What did the rule set in the Lok Prahari judgment state? What does Article 224A mandate? To address the growing backlog of criminal cases, the Supreme Court on January 30 allowed high courts to appoint retired judges on an ad hoc basis, provided they hear only criminal appeals as part of a bench led by a sitting judge. A bench of Chief Justice of India Sanjeev Khanna and Justices B.R. Gavai and Suryakant relaxed the rules set in Lok Prahari through its General Secretary S.N. Shukla IAS versus Union of India 2021, which had limited such appointments to high courts where judicial vacancies exceeded 20% of the sanctioned strength. Article 224A, introduced by the Constitution's 15th Amendment Act 1963, allows the appointment of retired judges to high courts on an ad hoc basis. Such appointments require the consent of both retired judge and the President of India. These judges receive allowances as determined by the President's order and exercise the same jurisdiction, powers, and privileges as the sitting High Court judge. The detailed procedure for such appointments is outlined in the 1998 Memorandum of Procedure. In the Lok Prahari, court identified specific circumstances that could warrant the appointment of ad hoc judges in certain high courts. At that time, nearly 40% of the judicial positions across all high courts were vacant. The court also referred to Law Commission reports from 1979, 1988, and 2003, which advocated for temporary appointment of retired judges as an effective measure to address the mounting backlog of cases. However, Supreme Court expressed concerns in Article 224A that could result in inaction in making recommendations for regular judicial appointments. Consequently, court clarified that ad hoc judges can be appointed when recommendations for filling less than 20% of vacancies have not been made. The court outlined several trigger points for such appointments, although the list is not very exhaustive. These include if the vacancies in High Court exceed 20% of its sanctioned strength, if cases in the specific category have been pending for more than 5 years, and if more than 10% of High Court's cases are pending for over 5 years, if the case disposal rate is lower than the rate at which new cases are filed, case clearance rate. And the court also recommended that each sees justice to form a panel of retired judges along with soon to retired judges for appointments. The Supreme Court on January allowed the High Courts to appoint retired judges on an ad hoc basis, provided they hear only criminal appeals as part of the bench led by a sitting judge. A bench of Chief Justice of India Sanjeev Khanna and Justice B.R. Gavai and Surikant relaxed the rule set in the Lok Prahari through its General Secretary S.N. Shukla IAS, retired versus Union of India 2021, which had limited such appointments to high courts which judicial vacancies exceeded 20% of the sanctioned strength. 20% of the sanctioned strength. Article 224A, introduced by Constitution 15th Amendment Act 1963, allowed appointment of retired judges to the High Court on an ad hoc basis. 224A. 224A. Such appointments require consent of both retired judge and the President of India. Will receive allowances determined by President's order. Exercise the same jurisdiction, powers, and privileges. Detailed procedure is outlined in 1998 Memorandum of Procedure. In Lok Prahari, Court identified specific circumstances that could warrant the appointment of ad hoc judges. At the time, nearly 40% of judicial positions across all high courts are vacant. Court also referred to Law Commission reports from 1979, 88, 2003, which advocated for the temporary appointment of retired judges as an effective measure to address the mounting backlog of cases. However, Supreme Court expressed concerns that 224A could result in inaction in making recommendations for regular judicial appointments. Court outlined several trigger points for such appointments, although the list is not exhaustive. This include if vacancies exceed 20%, if cases have been pending for more than 5 years. What does the latest order say? CGI bench noted that as part of January 25, there are 62 lakh cases pending across high courts. According to the data from National Judicial Data Grid, of this 18 lakh are criminal cases, more than 44 lakh are civil cases. To tackle this growing pendency, the court decided to set aside the condition laid in the Lok Prahari, which permitted the appointment of ad hoc judges only when judicial vacancies exceed the 20% of the sanctioned strength. It further ruled that ad hoc judges can only hear criminal appeals. Additionally, the number of ad hoc judges cannot exceed 10% of the High Court sanctioned judicial strength, meaning each High Court can have only 2 to 5 such appointments. There have been only 3 documented instances of ad hoc judicial appointments. In 1972, Justice Suraj Bhan was appointed to Madhya Pradesh High Court shortly after his retirement to adjudicate election petitions. Justice P. Venugopal was similarly appointed Madras High Court. 2007, Justice O.P. Srivastava was appointed to Allahabad High Court to preside over the Ayodhya title suits. A bench of Chief Justice of India Sanjeev Khanna and Justice B.R. Gavai and Surikant relaxed the rules set in Lok Prahari through its General Secretary S.N. Shukla, IAS retired versus the Union of India 21. The CGI-led bench noted that as of 25, there are 62 lakh cases pending across high courts. To tackle this growing pendency, the court decided to set aside the condition laid down in Lok Prahari, which permitted the appointment of ad hoc judges only when judicial vacancies exceeded the 20% of sanctioned strength. America's long-standing affair with television espionage, the reputation of the Sky in the worldwide media has certainly undergone severe rehabilitation. What was considered in early literature a profession of deceit has become personification of national interest. On February 7, 1940, Disney's second animated feature film Pinocchio premiered in New York City. In honor of the film, here's a quiz about movie and its legacy. The question who voiced the titular character Pinocchio also voiced another small character in the film. Name the other character and the actor. I forgot. Name the island in the Pinocchio world which is cursed. It has an amusement park that is designed to turn mischievous boys into donkeys. The movie is based on the works of Carlo Collodi, who wrote the original story in short installments in Italian magazine. It was later published as a book. Name the weekly periodical and original title of the story. Pinocchio was the first animated feature film to win competitive Academy Award. It won two awards for Best Original Score and Original Song. Styled with signature blue top hat, this character is the narrative of the movie. In 1918, Great Britain allowed men over the age of 21 and women over the age to vote. Women over 30 years. Men over only 21 and women over 30 years. In 1838, the Pitcairn, Pitcairn Islands, United Kingdom sole overseas territory, has given women right to vote. Name the place in India that given Travancore, first princely state, and the first princely state which granted right to vote and run for office is Rajkot. December 2015 municipal election allowed vote for the first time. Saudi Arabia 2015 municipal elections में सऊदी अरेबिया में पहली बार right to vote मिला. Name the country's first major country to grant both women at the same time. Thailand. Name the canton in Switzerland which has one of the last places in Europe to grant women the right to vote. Appenzell Innerrhoden. Civilian dead after alleged police torture in Jammu. New website for CSE prelims registration has errors. Applicants. 10,000 crore worth contract signed for Pinaka ammunition. Defense Ministry on Thursday signed contracts worth 10,000 crore for a variety of ammunition for armies. Pinaka multi-rocket launch system. Pinaka multi-rocket launch systems. Contracts were inked with Economic Explosives Limited and Munitions India Limited, Economic Explosives Limited and Munitions India Limited for the procurement of area denial munition, ADM Type 1 and high explosive pre-fragmented Mk1 enhanced rockets respectively for Pinaka MR multi-rocket launch systems. Contract for the upgrades in Shakti software has been signed with Bharat Electronics Limited. The ADM type ammunition has a specialized warhead to deliver a quantum of submunitions over the large area targeting mechanized forces. Opposition parties must speak up for Modi, critics says Shama Sawant. SEBI fraud case, court summons ED director Rahul Naveen over the central agency's failure to supply legible uh, copies of documents to the accused in 88 crore fraud case. IAF's Mirage 2000 crashes near Gwalior after system malfunction, pilots save. Indian Air Force aircraft twin-seater Mirage crashed on Thursday after a system malfunction. Both pilots safely ejected before the accident. IAF said the fighter plane was out on a routine sortie and crashed after encountering a system malfunction. IAF said in a post that an inquiry has been ordered to ascertain the cause of the accident. Plane crashed near 2:30 p.m. near Sunari village in the Karera police station limits, according to local police. Two pilots are safely ejected from the plane before the crash and received minor injuries. Additional SP Sanjeev Mulay told reporters that no local person suffered injuries in the incident. Local police and ambulance and fire tender reached spot immediately. IAF operates three squadrons of Mirage 2000 fighters, malfunctioned, manufactured by Dassault Aviation of France, which have since been upgraded and based in at Gwalior. High Court to supervise framing of charges in RG Kar graft case. Opposition attacks government over the inhumane deportation by US. Center plays down US handling of deportees. What was gross about 12 pending bills? Asked Supreme Court. State government argued that governor's conduct was that of political opponent. Once bills were repassed, Governor Ravi has no option but to give consent. Here the governor has countermanded the will of the people expressed through elected representatives. Mr. Venkatramani said the state, through its submissions, were portraying the governor as an insignificant authority occupying a small place in a constitutional democracy. Congress practices politics of appeasement. UNS planned to kill me, says Sheikh Hasina. Women, children were handcuffed. Deportees had their feet tied with ropes. US double downs on deportations amid outrage over shackled Indian immigrants returned on military plane. This is the first time military plane has been used for such a flight, according to officials. No word from government on US cancelling Chabahar waiver. A day after US President Donald Trump signed an order that could impose sanctions on India for its investment in Iran's Chabahar project port, the Union government on Thursday remained silent regarding the order and its implications. US order titled National Security Presidential Memorandum specifically named the port as it calls for maximum economic pressure on the Iranian government. Congress to hold protest over the deportation issue ahead of House session. Manipur CM prays for peace at Mahakumbh. Supreme Court gave charges of Kabaddi Federation to governing body. UGC draft rules bid by RSS to impose its agenda. Rahul. Sports champion actors to feature in Modi's pre-examination event. Prime Minister's speech is full of lies, half-truths, say Mallikarjun Kharge. Supreme Court shifts pleas against CLAT 25-2 results to Delhi High Court. Quarter 3 net up 84%. SBI terms the budget tax breaks a big plus. Jump starting January auto retail sales up 7%, passenger vehicles 16%. ITC's quarter net slips 7%. In quarter 3, Hero MotoCorp net up 12% to pay dividend 100. Akasa Air gets funding from Aziz Premji by family offices. Rupee slips 16 paise to dollar to 87.59. Byju's suspended RP. Former promoters approach NCLT. Byju's former resolution professional of insolvency-bound edtech firm Byju's moved the appellate tribunal NCLT. Odisha joins state pitch for 50% share of the divisible pool. Indus state stakes sale boost Bharti Airtel's quarter 3 net profit. US military contracted plane crashes in Philippines killing 4. French parliament finally adopts budget after tumultuous process. Israel has no exit plans to exit the UN bodies after right council boycott. Iran Revolutionary Guards unveil first drone carrier in Gulf border. Iran Revolutionary Guards revealed their first drone carrier Martyr Brahman Bagheri in Gulf waters. Israel army tells army to prepare for departure of Gazans. Trump's Gaza plan appeared to be on hold amid furor. Trump signs order barring trans athletes from women's sports, and Argentina bans gender transitions for minors. Guatemala gives Rubio a second deal of deportation. Panama rebuffs US claim of free travel through the canal. Rejected United States claim that it has secured free passage for the government vessels through the Panama Canal. Panama President put, told reporters the US assertion about the waterway was intolerable, simply and plainly intolerable. He rejected bilateral relations based on lies and falsehoods. France sends Mirage 2000 fighter jets to Ukraine. At least 80 killed as army militant outfit clash in Sudan. US warns of catastrophe. Army and SPLMN have accused each other of launching attacks. Sudan People Liberations Movement North (SPLM) led by Adel Aziz Al Hilu. What ails India's massive diagnostic sector, putting labs under the lens? Industry experts estimate that there are about 3 lakh labs across the country, and this number is growing. Within the healthcare sector, diagnostics account for 9% of the industry, estimated to be worth 860 billion in the financial year 24 and projected to grow about 1.25 1200 billion by the financial year 2028. Shankar Dhange 20 has been fighting a lone battle against the private diagnostic center in Maharashtra for years now, but he is yet to make any headway. 6 years ago, his sister, Sarika Bhonglat, lost her life following complications after a surgery. Shankar believes that the tests his sister underwent prior to the surgery were incorrect, and this led to wrong treatment being given, causing her death. The treatment that my sister was given was based on a lab report that was signed by a technician and not by a pathologist. It was this that led to incorrect treatment and complications and finally her death. How can Class 12 graduate be allowed to sign off on medical imaging and diagnostic tests? Shankar's case is not unique and dwells into the heart what ails the diagnostic sector in India today, a shortage of trained personnel to meet the rapid burgeoning of medical laboratories diagnostic facilities. While there are no exact figures, industry experts estimate that there are 3 lakh labs with healthcare sector, diagnostics account for 9% of the industry, $860 billion, $1,200 billion by 2028. Clinical Establishment Registration and Regulation Act. Clinical Establishment Registration and Regulation Act aims to bring all diagnostic centers and labs under its ambit with their registration with the respective state councils as clinical establishments. The Act also aims to provide guidance on the minimum standards of facilities and services that should be provided by diagnostic centers and labs. To date, the Act has been adopted by 12 states: Sikkim, Mizoram, Arunachal, Himachal, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Rajasthan, Telangana, Uttarakhand, Assam, Haryana, all union territories except Delhi. Some of the states, including Kerala and Karnataka, have their own legislation. Implementation has not begun, or where it has, remains poor. Given the low entry barrier and lack of strong regulatory environment, there are many standalone players. Diagnostic centers can obtain accreditation voluntarily from organizations such as National Accreditation Board for Testing (NABL). N. Venkateswaran, CEO NABL, in an email with Hindu, highlighted the challenges created by fast-paced growth of the private sector. He noted India has a highly fragmented market with many small unorganized labs largely not accredited and following uneven quality standards. This in terms of resources to bring in advanced diagnostics technologies, large variation in pricing even for routine tests, and inadequately skilled manpower. He said that while emphasis on quality and accuracy of results, lab regulation needs attention. There has to be more awareness about biomedical waste management to prevent outbreaks. There is a significant shortage of full-time doctors and staff in diagnostics industry. The situation makes it difficult for standalone diagnostic centers which may not be able to employ well-trained lab technicians and pathologists, affecting the quality of outcomes. Accredited labs must mandatorily employ a full-time lab technician and a radiologist. Health Ministry's own research indicated that India has the disadvantage of not having enough microbiologists, and some places do not have even enough qualified doctors or technicians. Challenges lies in what defining an unregulated lab. How you define one? We have not enough pathologists to run the number of labs in the country. Lack of proper regulations is an area of concern. He pointed out announcement made in the Assembly to constitute a State Council for Laboratory Technicians is yet to be implemented. In 2019, Shankar tried to file an FIR with Paranda Police and raised his concern with Grahak Manch Consumer Forum, but no avail. He has appealed to Aurangabad bench of Bombay High Court against the doctors of local hospital in Parshi. Doctors from the Maharashtra Association of Practicing Pathologists indicate that this is only such case and the number is only rising. The issue affects doctors too. Maharashtra-based Dr. Rahul Mayer filed a complaint of identity theft, stating that diagnostic lab in Jalgaon was fraudulently using his name, degree, and signature to giving fake reports to patients. Maharashtra Paramedical Council has established council to regulate paramedical personnel, including medical laboratory technicians. The rural-urban divide, one of the other issues, concentration of lab in urban areas, financial only 24% revenue comes from rural areas. For instance, Telangana government doctors said lack of essential upgrades for a hindrance. Both Osmania and government Gandhi hospitals, major state healthcare facilities, urgently require improvements. Further noting that limited operational hours at government laboratories restricted access. Paramita Sarkar, final year MD at Medical College Kolkata, said that there was a huge workload or 800 tests per day but a serious staff shortage. Three of us work in shifts in labs, but that is not enough. We need more technicians and people who can run the testing machines to ensure work gets done on time and faster. Pricing problem. Prices is always an issue when it comes to private health sector is of the concern of diagnostics as well. In January 2018, Telangana began the Telangana Diagnostic Program or T-Diagnostics Initiative. 18 crore tests have been conducted, benefiting 1 crore individuals, collectively resulting in saving 1000 crore out of pocket and expenditure. While there are many issues in terms of regulation that need to be streamlined, representatives of diagnostic sector say they too want change. In Kerala, for instance, lab representatives say space and education requirements under the Kerala State Establishment Clinical Establishment Act are unviable. 6,500 independent small and medium paramedical labs in the state, and if one wants to go by minimum standards of only 1,000 will be able to function. The space constraints are a problem in Tamil Nadu as well. Sector is willing to have regulations to bring in standardization. Karnataka chapter of the Indian Association of Pathologists is asking to strengthen the Karnataka Act, expanded to include licensing criteria, accreditation mandates, and penalties for non-compliance. So India has a highly fragmented market with many small unorganized labs, largely not accredited and following uneven quality standards. Some reports are issued with signatures obtained in exchange for money. Lab has a license but roles indicate ghost employees and doctors. Some states are addressing the price issue. Telangana has T-Diagnostic Initiative. 18 crore have been conducted and Kerala has ARA Ardhra Mission, which provides basic laboratory tests at nominal rates. IAF fighter plane crashes near Gwalior. Prepare plan for voluntary departure of Gazans, Israel. 80 killed at militant army clash in Sudan. Sovereignty versus financial constraint. Should India build a foundational AI model? India cruises past England in first ODI. Center plays down US handling of deportees. What was gross about 12 bills kept pending for 3 years. Supreme Court to Tamil Nadu governor. UGC extends state to submit feedback on draft guidelines. Congress practices politics of appeasement. Modi in Rajya Sabha. Yunus planned to kill me, says Hasina in speech. BJP trying to poach up candidates, says Kejriwal. Investment proposals of 4 lakh crore received during BGPS 25 CM. Akhilesh alleges of massive rigging in Milkipur bypoll. Saints played a crucial role in protecting cultural and unity. Mahakum serves as a beacon of peace, says Bihar governor. Beacon of peace, unity, and service for the entire world. There was in-depth discussions on spiritual philosophy, Indian culture, Ganga conservation, and global peace. Supreme Court to hear Kerala's pleas on governor's conduct next month. Dissolution of new districts rocks Rajasthan Assembly for second consecutive day to held for implicating state BJP chief in rape case. Jammu and Kashmir police to review Mirwais security. Hurriyat chairman Mirwais, after his engagement with Joint Parliamentary Committee on Work Amendment Bill, outrage to Kashmiri Pandits in New Delhi. Christian group in Arunachal Pradesh to go on fast from Feb 10 against implementation of anti-conversion law. Freedom of Religion Act would be implemented after its rules are framed. This following a directive from Guwahati High Court to the state government to finalize draft rules for the act within 6 months from September. Christians object to the release of Odia film Sanatani Karma Hi Dharma. Walyar patients aided the accused of rape to rape their minor daughters. CBI Munde ordered to pay 2 lakh maintenance in domestic violence case. AI in management education, shaping future ready leaders. The men who play women under the stars for centuries and men in Maharashtra's Sindhudurg region and parts of North Goa have been playing women characters in the Shavatar performances that tell stories of Indian mythology. Sky Sip repeat as Gulmarg embraces its status as a global ski destination. Its après-ski culture reflects a perfect balance, traditional Kashmiri hospitality paired with modern experiences. So that's all for today. See you in the next one.